In his trial, Socrates has three main accusers. There is Meletus, who represents the poets. There's Anytus, who represents the craftspeople and politicians. And there is Lycon, who represents the rhetoricians. Meletus is the main speaker. He does the talking. So what are the charges that Meletus levels against Socrates? Well, these charges, as I noted before, are not the sort of things you tend to see today. There's no accusation that he is a thief or an embezzler or engaged in, murder. So the first charge is that Socrates is a doer of evil who corrupts the youth. The second charge is that Socrates does not believe in the gods of the state, but has his own new divinities. Now, what about this corruption of the youth? So, according to Meletus, Socrates is a doer of evil and corrupts the youth. In his defense, Socrates tries to not only defend himself, but he's going to turn the tables on Meletus and try to prove that Meletus is a doer of evil, that Meletus pretends to be serious when he's only joking, and that Meletus is eager to bring men to trial from a pretended zeal and interest about matters he really has no interest in. So then he turns to engage Meletus in the classic Socratic questioning. So since Meletus says that he thinks so much about the youth, Socrates asks Meletus to tell the judges, who is it that improves the youth? Surely Meletus would know, since he took such effort, so many pains to discover the corrupter of the youth. Initially, Meletus is silent, saying nothing. And Socrates, to goad him a bit, claims that this proves that what he's saying is true, that that Meletus really doesn't care. So forced to speak, Meletus claims that the judges, all of them, can instruct and improve the youth. When pushed by Socrates more, Meletus claims that the audience and the senators improve the youth. When Socrates pushes him again, Meletus goes so far as to claim that every single Athenian improves the youth, with one exception, Socrates. Socrates is the sole, the lone, the only corrupter. So how does Socrates respond back to this charge that he is the lone corrupter? Now, Socrates has modified the charge. The initial charge against him is, of course, that he is a corrupter of the youth, and he is goaded and pushed Meletus into making the charge that Socrates is the sole, the only corrupter, and all other Athenians improve the youth. In response to this, Socrates presents the horse trainer analogy, and it goes like this. According to Socrates, one person is able to do the horses good, or at least not many people. Who is this person that does the horses good? Well, this would be the horse trainer, because the horse trainer has knowledge. Other people who lack knowledge, who have anything to do with horses, would tend to injure them, harm them. And he takes this to be true of horses and all other animals. Now this is where he makes the analogy, not like super explicitly laying it out formally, but here's the comparison. He claims the condition of the youth would be happy if they had one corrupter and everyone else improved them. And so his point here is that in the case of the horses, only one person with knowledge can do them good, and the one that can do this is the person with the knowledge. And in the case of the many, they would tend to harm the horses. And by analogy, Socrates infers that the same is true of the youth, that it is the few with knowledge that can help them, and the many who do not know can harm them. And so Socrates concludes from this that Meletus never had any thought about the youth, and that Meletus's carelessness, his sloppiness, is seen in not caring about the charges he brought against Socrates. Socrates then modifies the charges again. So he asks Meletus a series of questions, again kind of pushing him through the Socratic method, and Meletus agrees to the following claims. First, it is better to live among good citizens than bad citizens. Why? Well, the good do the neighbors good, and the bad do them evil. And Socrates gets Meletus to accept that no one wants to be injured, rather than benefited by those they live with, because no one likes to be injured. So then he asks Meletus, is his corruption, that is Socrates' corruption, intentional or unintentional? And Meletus says the corruption is intentional. And this modifies the charge for a second time. The original charge is that Socrates is a corrupter. And here he modifies the charge to not being a corrupter, but being an intentional corrupter. Now, he recounts what Meletus has said, that Meletus has admitted the good do the neighbors good, and the evil do them evil. And Socrates contends that since he knows that if he corrupts people he has to live with, it's very likely he'll be hurt by them. And so, given what he's argued that no one wants to be hurt, Socrates concludes that there's only two possibilities. Either he does not corrupt them, or if he does corrupt them, it is unintentionally. So either way, Socrates concludes Meletus is lying. Because if Socrates does not corrupt, then Meletus is lying. And if Socrates corrupts unintentionally, then Meletus is lying as well, because he's not corrupting intentionally. Now suppose that his offense is unintentional, that Socrates does corrupt, but does so unintentionally. And in response to this, Socrates says the law doesn't punish people for unintentional offenses. So if Meletus believed that Socrates was corrupting the youth unintentionally, he should have taken Socrates aside and privately warned him and corrected him. And if he had been better advised, Socrates says, he would have stopped whatever corruption he was doing, that he was allegedly doing unintentionally. Yet, as Socrates points out, Meletus had nothing to say to Socrates and refused to teach him. But now, Meletus drags him to court, which is a place of punishment, not instruction. And so Socrates concludes that Meletus has no care about the matter. He's just out to get Socrates.